thank our very own Rabbi Solomon, Barry Solomon, sponsoring in memory of his dear father of Manny Solomon, Menachem Mendel ben Mordechai Yaakov Olav Shalom, inspired by the drasha last Shabbos morning, Yeshakayach Tiska Lemitzis, and the Heilige Neshama Shemizocha to a tremendous continuous Aliyah Neshama, and Gan Eytan Milah Mechoyel Achoyel. I want to mention as well, Sylvia's wife, Simon Bas, Shimon Aleo Shalom. Likewise, the Heilige Neshama Shemizocha to a tremendous continuous Aliyah Neshama, and Gan Eytan Milah Le'ela U'Le'ela. Turning once again with Siyata D'Shmaya to the opening psukim of this week's parsha, Parshas Tazria Mitzorah, we encounter that well-known pasuk of Vayom Shmini Yimo B'Sara Lasa. Perkid Beis Pasuk Gimel. The mitzvah d'Oraisa Bris Milah occurs when on day number 8. Bris Milah, we understand, it's in the parsha of Isha Kisazria V'Yoda Zachar. So on the heels of that, it's expected Vayom Shmini Yimo B'Sara Lasa. But clearly it's very matim, very apropos to the Zaman. It's soon after the Yom Tov Pesach, we know, based on the Pesukim in Yecheskel, V'at Aaron Ve'Arya, we needed Zechuyos in order to warrant the exodus from the land of Egypt. And what did the Eibusher give us? He gave us Mitzad Echad Bris Milah, Mitzad Sheni Korban Pesach. So Bris Milah is right in our minds. We were just created a new Leida Chadasha, Yetzirah Chadasha of Am Yisrael. We only were Ma'avsher, our own Gula, Yedei, the performance of Bris Milah. Soon after Pesach, we will encounter Isha Kisazri V'Yoda Zachar, and then we get to what? Vayom Shmini Yimo B'Sara Lasa. Bris Milah is clearly in our mind. We were visited on Pesach by Eliyahu Hanavi, who happens to also be the Malach Bris. He came to our home's Pesach time, and soon after we had Shmini, Parsha Shmini Lamalam and Atzeva, we want to be holding by Shmini, and on the heels of Shmini, Vayom Shmini Yimo B'Sara Lasa, we have Bris Milah. On day number 8, Eliyahu Hanavi was just by our home's Pesach time, comes and visits us every Bris Milah as well. Vayom Shmini Yimo B'Sara Lasa. It's a fascinating tshuva of Rabbi Kiva Eger in his tshuvas and Madura Kama and Simon Membeis. It's a fascinating tshuva stamazai what Rabbi Kiva Eger is dealing with. And he gets into the discussion of how we're magdir, how we understand the bracha, and that's recited by Bris Milah. In addition to Al HaMilah, we also have Lachnisa B'Brisa Shel Avram Avinu. Now the pastors is l'chayr that it's a bracha on the Milah. Lachnisa B'Brisa Shel Avram Avinu. Who is the first one mitzvah in the mitzvah of Bris Milah? And that was, of course, Avram Avinu. Even though he was already 99 years old, he was then mitzvah as well to give Yitzchak B'Yom HaShmini on day number 8 to Bris Milah. But he writes the Ramban and Emor brings the lofty name Yisrael down to the world Ayadei Bris Milah. He is the one to do Bris Milah on himself. That's Avram Avinu, and that is Bris Milah. So that's the Pashas Lachnisa B'Brisa Shel Avram Avinu. Very apropos to the performance of the Bris Milah. After you recite the Birchas HaMitzvah of Al HaMilah, and then we journey immediately thereafter into what Lachnisa B'Brisa Shel Avram Avinu. That is a reference to Bris Milah. But answer Kiveger, based on the Lavush writes, Rei Samchain Nordea cites a Yesh Mefarshim, writes the Lavush, a Yesh Mefarshim, that it's not a bracha on mitzvahs Milah, it's a mitzvah, it's a bracha that's recited on being machnisim into the bris of Torah and mitzvahs. What shaykhus? All right, so Kiveger as follows. We have a Gemara in the Darm Daf Lamed Beis and Aleph Machlokes Rabbi and Rabbi Yazui. The pasuk Imlo Brisi Yom Valayla Chug Shemayim Lo Samti. We know that it's a reference to what Rabbi says to Bris Milah. Along comes Elazar and says, no, it's a reference to Torah. And L'chayra Frek the Taisus Yantav. It's very matim L'chayra that it's a reference to Torah, because what? Imlo Brisi Yom Valayla Chug Shemayim Aretz Lo Samti. What's Brisi Yom Valayla? It's an echo of Yeshua Parakala Posaches Vagiswa Yom Valayla. So we understand Shitas Rabbi Eliezer. Brisi Yom Valayla is a reference to the bris of Torah, wherein we have a tziva Vagiswa Yom Valayla. But how do you understand Shitas Rebbe, Bris Milah? Where do you see Bris Milah? We have the whole Sig and Yavamis, the way we paskin, and that ain't Mullen, Ela Bayom. Bris Milah is only Bayom. So what's Bayom and Balayla? So the Tosas Yontif is Manchik. He says, put the comma in a different place. It's not Brisi Yom and Balayla. It's if you don't have the Bris Milah, then Yom and Laila, Chuk Shemaim Arts Lo Samti. And he reads the Posik differently, which Kiveger says clearly is a teretz that's Ma'od Dachuk. Tzedachik Teretz. Says Dr. Kiveger, I don't have a problem with the Shita of Rebbe that it's a reference to Bris Milah. Why? Because Dr. Kveger, they're really Hatalia, they're Tluyin Behadodi, they're interdependent, Bris Milah and Liman HaTorah. Where does he get this from? A Kli Yakar drasha. The Kli Yakar gave us the Sefer Kli Yakar al HaTorah, gave us numerous other Sfarim, and one of the most popular is this collection of drashas called Olos Ephraim. And in Drush 392, Shin Sadi Beis writes the Olos Ephraim, that when the Eibishter commanded us to do what? A mitzvah of Hasara Sa'arla, Dahainu the Chaticha Sa'arla, to remove the shame Arel and to give us, to stamp us with the Kedushas Yisrael. When the Eibishter gave us such a mitzvah, it's a Gashmiistic manifestation of what's taking place in a Pnimiistic, a Ruchniistic Ofen, which is that Ayadei, the removal of the Arla, that's on the path Tachton by the Aver, Hatashrish by the Mokama Milah. That's going to be representative of what? Taking rid of, getting rid, being Masalik, the Arla Salev. Dahainu, we're not able to fully learn Torah, to be Shakua, to immerse ourselves in Liman HaTorah. And to what? Until you have a Bris Milah, and Arla isn't Shaykh to Liman HaTorah. At least Pasmona, Ubei and Rav, how do you get into Torah? You have to remove the Orlar Salev, Amaltem Ace Orlos Levavchem. How do you begin that process? By first removing the Orla Mamish from the Patachton, from the Ever Tashmish. Once you remove the Orla, down below, that's Ma'avsher, that in a Pnimistic Eifa, now you remove the Orla Salev. And now, and only now, can you really learn, understand, and fully appreciate Liman HaTorah to Raseinu HaKadosha. Milah writes, they're really saying the same thing. They're both looking at Bris Yom of Alayla. And what is it? Yes, the Pasha Sagibis of Yom of Alayla, it's a Bris HaTorah. And the Bris HaMitzvah, Rebbe's just saying what? By me, the Iker thing, Gedaila Milah. Because without Milah, you wouldn't even have Torah. Saying a Chanami about it's going in Torah, but it's a Zabazach. At the end of the day, it's one and one the same. Gedaila Milah, because without Bris Milah, we wouldn't be able to enter properly the Bris HaTorah of Yom Alayla. Only Ayadei the Bris Milah. And now you can be Makayim the Bris HaTorah and Mitzvah of Bris Yom Alayla. So Rabbi Loza says it's all about Torah. Rabbi says, I agree, Baker, it's about Torah. But the Torah is only Ma'osher, it's only enabled and empowered al Yadei. First and foremost, the mitzvah, Bris Milah. Only someone who has removed the Arla canal symbolically, remove the Arlas Levavchem and be Ma'avsher and be Mechen Atzmo Kidaboy to prepare himself for Liman Torasenu HaKadosha. That's Rabbi in L'chaira. It's very Geshmak Lefi and he has Taiti that it's Rabbi who darshans the Pasuk is a reference to Bris Milah. What do we know about Rabbi? The whole Sugya at the end of Ksuvas in the Gemara and Shabbos, that he was called the Rabbeinu HaKadosh. Why? Because Me'olon was stako b'milaso. He understood the chashivas of his milah. Whom? Dafka Rebbe, Lefini Estaiti. The one who understood the chashivas, the first one who introduced the Inyan of Kedushin to the world, which the Shiuri Bagad in Masechah Sanhedrin says an interesting phenomenon to consider. We only have 5 people in history who are named Kadosh. We have the Shlag Kadosh, the Alshach HaKadosh, the Orachaim HaKadosh, the Yehudi HaKadosh, the Yid HaKadosh, and the Ariya Kodesh. Interesting, the Ariya Kodesh, the Shlah Kodesh, the Alshach Kodesh, Harachaim Kodesh, the Yid Kodesh, Davka, these 5, he leaves it as a Tzarech Yid. Why Davka, these 5? It's something we discussed a little bit in the past, something to think about. He got some nice Shabbos conversation. In the end of the day, the one who introduced that concept was Rebbe, Rabbeinu HaKodesh. It's very mistaver that Rabbeinu HaKodesh is the one to say, Brisi Yom Alayla. It's all about Bris Milah. That's what gave him the lofty appellation of Kodesh. He is Rabbeinu HaKodesh, Me'olam lo Estaka. That is Rebbe, and it's very geschmack because Rebbe writes the Megala Mukas and the Ramchal and so many others. He was called the Rabbeinu HaKadosh. He was called Rabbeinu HaNasi as well. What's Nasi? Writes the Megala Mukas. Nasi is Rosh Hashanah Nishmasol Shel Yaakov Avinu, because Rebbe was a Gilgul of Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu, we know, Me'olam lo ra keri miyamav. He's connected the bracha of Kel HaKadosh. He's called the Kadosh, the Aloka b'tachtoinim. That's Yaakov Avinu. Gevaldik Yaakov Avinu, who was born already Nolan Mohol. As Avstor Nosson Perek Beis Lis, he and the Meresh Tanchum Parshas Noach. Yaakov is already born, he's Nolan Mol, not Avram, that Yitzchak, but Yaakov was, he's the Ishtam. He was already born Betwimus, he's called Kel HaKadosh, and the Gilgul is Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, Nasi Rosh Hashanah, and Nishmosel Shel Yaakov Avinu. Milah is going to focus on the Milah. So back to Kveger and Shuvas and Madura Kamas and Membeis. So to Kveger, it's really the same thing. Ayadei the Torah, Ayadei the Milah, now and only now can you have Liman HaTorah. Milah says, now I understand Not only Shitas Rebbe, now I understand how you learn up Bris Yom Avalayla. It's really on the Bris HaTorah, but the Bris HaTorah is only Mov Shara Yadei, the Bris HaMilah as well. And now I understand the Yeshua Farshim, he writes that the Levush quotes, what's Lachnisa with Bris Shalavrim Vinu? It's not a brocha, writes the Levush, on the Etzah Maisa Milah. It's not a Milah, it's the Bris of Avram Vinu, who's all about Torah, who's the one who started Skufas Torah. How you machnis him into the Bris of Torah? B'shas Maisa, when you remove the Chatichas Arla and you give him Kedushas Yisrael, then be also Shah simultaneously, you're being Ma'afsher, you're engendering the possibility that now and only now can I be machnis him into the Bris of Torah, Liman HaTorah, Nasiyas HaMitzvahs. That's Lachnisa with Briso, Ashal Avram Avinu, Ad Kan, Keveger, based on the Klei Yakar, Nolas Ephraim. Feiner is Eytan, and now comes that very geschmack. What's the nusach that we say at every Bris Milah based on the Gemara Shabbos Kaflam and Zayinim and Beis? Kishem shenichas the Bris, Keni Konis the Torah l'chupa, Olam Asim Tayvim. Some Rishonim have the Girsa, Keni Konis the Torah l'chupa, Olam Mitzvahs Olam Asim Tayvim. Akol Padim. The Welt asked the Kasha. So many Sfarim written on in Yani Drush Benogea Bris Milah, and of course we all have to tackle that question of the sequence. Keshem shenichas the Bris, Keni Konis the Torah. Torah, when is he mitzvah in Torah? First, let's start with Masim Tovim. When he's already a child, Masim Tovim. Now Lachari can understand first, and then let's get to Torah. And then when I say the Chuppah, that's the mission, the end of the fifth Perkei Avos, Perkei Mishnah Chavalet. Why do we start with Torah? The Feiner is Taiti. It's very geschmack. Because like a Kavego, let's bring together Rabbi and Rabbi Eliezer based on the Klei Yakar and his Drosha Solas Ephraim Shinsadi Beis. The only way we can be maknas him into Bris HaTorah is Ayidei Bris Milah. And that is Lachnisa b'Bris Shalavrim into the Bris of Torah. So we say to the child, to the Rachanimu, Kashem Shenichas Bris, the same way you came into the Bris. Keni Konis l'Torah. Because now, and only now were you ma'afsher, that now you could enter the Bris of the Torah. Kashem Shenichas Bris, now that you had Bris Milah, now you can enter Torah. That's the Yikar Hadgosh. In addition to getting the Torah, now we'll also have Chuppah and Masim Tovim. And that's why the Torah comes first. But we didn't fully answer the question. How do we understand this order? In fact, what really is the bracha? So perhaps the idea is as follows, something that I've said it a bris or two in the past. Perhaps one idea is as follows. What is the nusach habracha? Kashem shenichas the bris. What do you have to add that for? Seems to be superfluous. Give the rachanim a bracha the same way. You're here today. We all know why we're here today. So give them a bracha. We should meet by simcha. So say, you know what? We should meet by your Torah, by your chuppah, by your masim tovim. You should be zeicha. What tikanis? The Torah l'chumasim. Kashem shenichas the bris. Kilu. It's mavusas and miyusid. It's predicated the same way you came into the bris. Kachi kanis the Torah l'chumasim tovim. Just give him a bracha. He should be nechnas at the Torah mitzvahs masim tovim. The same way he came into the bris. What does he know? Perhaps the idea is as follows. How did this child come into the Bris Milah? This child came into the Bris Milah recognizing what? Recognizing the Gemara needed Aflam and Abed Beis. He was learning with a Malach Hashem Tzavok. It was called Torah Kula. He gets called Torah Kula, and Rechaim Kaneski was asked in Torah Sikha, does that apply to women as well? And he says, why not? Why not? He was asked, is the little cleft under the fulcrum, is that the symbol of the Baal Malchus Pib? He says, that's a legend. He says, Baal Malchus Pib means he gives you a little patch. He gives you a little patch. The goy and pashas aren't getting kol Torah Kula, but the men, the woman. But the male is certainly getting kol Torah Kula. He's learning, and not only is he learning, but he's learning kol Torah Kula. He's learning the Shem Shamayim, no ulterior motives. Nobody's watching him, nobody's looking, not for any awards, not for any money or covet. And he's got the best chavrus in the world. He's learning with the Malach Hashem Tzavokas. We know Yaakov wanted to get out because he might have had a Malach as a Rebbe, but he had Esav as a chavrusa. And here you got what? You got a Rebbe and a chavrusa, Malach Hashem Tzavokas. You have mamish, your own portable food system. You don't have to worry about closing the Gemara to go to the bathroom to get a drink, your food. It's immediate disposal. It's gewaldig. The boy inside his mother's womb understands what Talmud Torah Lishma is all about. The best Rebbe, the best Chavrusa, L'Shem Shemayim. He chaps what it means to learn Kol Torah Kula. What about chuppah? All right, so the Sefer Mekori Menhagim and Simon Chaf, it's bought by the Chuvas Matzah Vayashar on the Zohar Breishis Chelek Al Simon Zion. The Mekori Menhagim says a man is together with his parshert 3 times. B'shas Leida, b'shas the chuppah, underneath the chuppah Hashem brings the 2 halves of a neshama together as one, and then la'achar misal and etzam and tzachim the neshama saw together. The first time, right, the Mekori Menhagim that the neshama saw together, b'shas Leida, so Hashem brings together this newborn Rachanimel together with his other half, and he gives the child a glimpse of what it means to be ba'achdis gemura, b'mechor machat sevaisim together with his other half. Duchra plag gufa mikri writes his own vayikris together. He tastes that achdus together with his other half. And then, of course, masam tovim when he gets out, what does he see? When he gets out, he sees masam tovim l'shma. The child right now wasn't really giving much of anything back to the mother. But the mother showering and everyone showering the child with love and attention, care and attention. So the Phineas Daiti, one kavana of many that we have in mind is what? Yes, we want to start Kashem Shenichas Bris. Let's stop and reflect for but a moment. Kashem Shenichas Bris. We turn to the Rachanimo and we say to this newborn male, hey, how did you come into the Bris Milah 8 days after you were born? You understood what Torah was, L'Shem Shamayim. You were learning those 9 months of gestation, the Tisha Yarchei Leida. You were learning culture with the best Malach, the best Chavrusa, the best Rabbi in the world, L'Shem Shamayim. And that was number 1. Remember, he was learning Torah first. And then what? And then B'shas Leida writes the Mekori Menhagim cited by the Matzah Vayashar. B'shas Leida, that's when he was margish the Achdus Gemru with his other half. And Milah Chuppah comes next. You came into the Bris. First you understand what Torah was in the Tisha Yarchei Leida. Then B'shas Leida, the Yibishter brought you together with your other half. And now what? 8 days of Masam Tovim. Look at the way your mother, your father are cradling you and nursing you and taking care, tending to your every need. And what are you doing? How much you're not really giving back of anything. But the parents are giving you what? Chesed shalamis, without any sense of reciprocity. They're giving you endless love, attention, and care. And you margish that the last 8 days. And maybe we turn to the Tinuk, and the sequence is so geshmak, because it's mamish chronologically in perfect sequence. Hey, Rachanimo, little Avram Yitzchak, how'd you come into the Bris? Kashem Shenichas the Bris. With awareness of what Torah is all about. Of what it means to begin with Yeresh Chaya, what that's all about. How on Masim Tovim are all about. Kaini Kanis the Torah. Oh, the Torah you're going to learn. Go back and reflect. How'd you come into the Bris? You understood what Torah Lishma was with the best Rebbe, the best Chavrusa, the best situation. That's how you should approach all the Torah you learn henceforth. Mekanol Haba, B'meshech Yemei Chayav. And the same way you are margish, what it means to be together, unified with the other half. Kashem says the Kachi Kanis to do the Chuppah, which Mekori Menhagim told us at Simon Chaf is time number 2. That Hashem yet again brings together the 2 halves of a neshama together. And can he go, so what? To Masam Taivim. Now go back after the Shas Leida and think about all those Masam Taivim. That's how you should approach the Masam Taivim without any expectation of any reciprocity, of any expectation of getting anything in return. Chesed Shalames. The orders Geshmak, the reason we start. Rachanimo Kashay. The same way you came into the Bris and you understood what Torah, what it means to be with your other half, and what it means to Emistika Masam Taivim. Keni Kanis the Torah, the Chuppah, the Masam Taivim. The rest of your life of wonderful night, the Gaval, the Gesham's Kaddish ahead.